Anyway, I'm glad you're here. Love being here with you. So if you got a sheet of paper, the outline's on there. It'll also be up on the board. We actually are doing an Old Testament overview, kind of a big picture of the Old Testament. The Old Testament is a very important part of the Christian life. Don't ever let anybody diminish the value of the Old Testament as if it's less than the New Testament. The Old Testament is the only Bible that Paul, Peter, and Jesus ever read or preached out of. Not because they didn't like the New Testament. They didn't have the New Testament. That was their Bible. All Scripture is inspired by God. It's specifically talking about the Old Testament. And from Genesis, the first book of the Bible, to Revelation, the last book of the Bible, it's one story. Not individual stories here and there scattered that have their own different moral. One story, one message, tied together, not disconnected. One person said the Old Testament is the New Testament concealed, meaning there's so many pictures and shadows in the Old Testament pointing to Jesus. Passover lamb, the high priest, Melchizedek, the suffering servant. Those are all pointers. So the Old Testament is the New Testament concealed, and the New Testament is the Old Testament revealed. So we read the New Testament, it's like, oh, that's what marriage was really about. Not procreation, but the gospel. One story, not disconnected individual stories. And the thread that ties the Old Testament and the New Testament together is Jesus. All over the Bible. Matter of fact, I love when Jesus, we've read it before, after his resurrection, he goes to his disciples and he gets out the Bible. They're what we call the Old Testament. And he said, "These are my words which I spoke to you while I was still with you, that all the things which are written about me in the law of Moses," that's the first 5 books of the Bible, "and the prophets and the Psalms must be fulfilled." And then he explained to them the things concerning himself in all the Scripture. There I am. Last week we did Joseph. There I am. There I am. There I am. I would have loved to have been at that Bible study. And we want, in our own very small, enlightened way, that's what we're trying to do. Say, there he is, there he is, there he is, and it's one story. It's not old, I don't know what that's about, and then, boy, you're getting the good stuff new. It's all one connected story. Also, the reason that we're looking at this Old Testament overview is that that's our collective story. If you go into counseling, what they'll do first or second week is take a history. Why is Uncle Johnny so mean? Why does Aunt Jane cry a lot? Well, if you knew their stories, that would help explain a lot. Well, we have a collective story. Starts in Genesis that we all share. Like, what were we created for? Want to know that? He made us male and female for a reason. What's that about? Sin, this power, evil, came into the world and into us. What effect does that have on our story? And what is it about this promised seed? Jesus, the first time he was mentioned, prophesied, is in Genesis 3:15, right after the fall. And God said, the promised seed of the woman's going to come and crush the head of the seed of the serpent and undo the work of the fall. And that seed is what we're tracing. Satan tried to use Cain to kill Abel, which is where the seed of the woman was going to come. But then he brought Seth. The seed comes through Seth. Then Noah. Noah had 3 sons, one of them Shem. And you keep going on. Shem was an ancestor to Abraham. And God spoke to Abraham this covenant. And he said, Abraham, I'm going to make out of you a great nation. give you this land. By the way, I know you're 75 and your wife's 65 and barren, never had a child, but I'm going to make a nation out of you. And it's going to be 25 years before it comes. But in that nation, all the nations of the world are going to be blessed by this seed that's coming through. And so Abraham, that was spoken to him. Abraham had a son Isaac, who had a son Jacob. Jacob had 12 sons. One of them was Joseph, we talked about last week. Joseph, we talked about, was a pointer to Jesus. It's a story about Easter. Joseph's brothers committed all these horrible sins, attempted murder, greedy slave dealing, lying to an elderly man about his son, all this sin. And yet God took all of that, sin of the brothers of Joseph, and saved the world through Joseph. It's a picture of the gospel. And not only that, because there was famine in the land and all of Joseph's brothers would have died had it not been for God's work in Joseph that came through the brothers' sin. But Joseph's brother Judah would be spared because the tribe, the seed of the woman was going to come through Judah. And one day the Lion of the tribe of Judah was coming to undo the work of the fall. So it's one big story pointing to Jesus. And so we're trying to look at the Old Testament, and where we left last time, they're in Egypt, right? So the whole family, Joseph's whole family has come to live in Egypt so that they would live. Otherwise, they would be dead from the famine. So saved, right? Like, yay, this is a great story. Red bow ends well. But in a few decades, this family is going to be in bondage. Like what? Dun, 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 dun. Here's a big point for today. God's ways. The Christian life is filled with glory and groan. There are graces that are sweet and bitter, but they're still graces. You and I have to get our expectations correct. The Bible says the Christian journey is being sorrowful yet always rejoicing simultaneously. The only thing that we know that Paul and Barnabas quoted to those early disciples when they saved them is, hey, you got to get this. Through many tribulations we must enter the kingdom of God. It's the only thing we know. That's Christianity 101. Don't tell them now health, wealth, and prosperity. Because as soon as a turn comes, it's, throw that in the trash. That didn't work. You don't want people to be focused on my right to my American dream. It just disillusions us. We've got to interpret correctly. So here's a question for you as we go through this sermon. What are your expectations in life, for the Christian life? Here's my definition for expectation. A disappointment waiting to happen. So here's a phrase that we use a lot. I don't know that I've ever really, well, I have. David Peavyhouse's funeral, I gave a little bit of backstory. I don't think I have since then. Life is hard and God is good. Life is hard and God is good. We use that a lot. But here's the backstory. A guy named Marshall Shelley who said this. He was editor of Christianity Today for many years. And in the 90s, his wife, Susan, and he lost a couple of children. Mandy, in 1994, she was 2 years old and she had a genetic defect. And Susan got pregnant again, and they knew before their son Toby, 2 years later, was going to be born, that he had the same rare genetic disorder. And the doctor said he's just going to live for minutes. Toby was born. They laid Toby on Susan's chest. They watched him breathe several breaths and turn blue, and he died 2 minutes later. Marshall Shelley, who was editor of Christianity Today, a Christian magazine, wrote an article somewhere after that, and he asked this question: why would God create a child to live for 2 minutes? And here's his answer. He didn't. He designed him to live forever. And 2 minutes is not much difference than 70 years when you're considering eternity. It's not even the width of a piece of paper on its side. Not long after that, Marshall Shelley attended one of his, I think it was, 30-year reunion, something like that. Anyway, they asked him to stand up and share what he had learned about life. And he stood up and said, life is hard, and God is good. Amen. They named Toby, the son that died after 2 minutes, Tobiah, which means God is good. Not because they could feel that, but because they knew that by faith. So life is hard, and God is good, and He is sovereign. We talked about that word. Supreme ruler, supreme authority. So we're in Exodus. We're going to read a little bit about the first of Exodus. Exodus, second book of the Bible, it means to exit. And it's part of the story, not just of Israel's salvation, but of ours. That's the point. And the tapestry. It's a story that God is weaving. You know what a tapestry? It's like a what? Weaving. Cross stitch. Yeah. So in a tapestry, there's dark threads and there's light threads, but they're all part of the picture that God is weaving. So let's pick it up. Exodus 1:5. So all the persons who came from the loins of Jacob, okay, so Joseph's father, when the famine came, Joseph was a second in charge in Egypt. Very powerful man. And he said, you all come to live in Egypt. I'll take care of you. And the king of Egypt gave him a place to stay. And there were 70 of them. But Joseph was already in Egypt, right? Remember, miraculous. I mean, wow. He's the second in charge of the most important man in the world. And that's the part we focus on. And rightly so. Like, how glorious is that? But you know what we forget? He spent 13 years. Got sold by his brothers. Wow, how I would have just laid down and thrown a temper tantrum. Got to Potiphar's house. What do? Just do the right thing. Serve this man well to the glory of God. He gets promoted, and then his wife tries to seduce him. He does the right thing. He runs away from her. She tells a lie. He gets thrown in jail. God, where he spends, I don't know how many years, but 13 years between when he got thrown into that pit and sold till he became vice president of Egypt. We don't focus on that very much, right? I'm not trying to be doom and gloom, but remember, glory and groan. God is good and life is hard. Light threads, dark threads. It's all part of the tapestry. Joseph died and all his brothers and all that generation, but the sons of Israel were filled and increased greatly and multiplied and became exceedingly mighty. So I'm sure we'll come to it at some point, but when Israel came out of Egypt, the Bible says after 400 years, there were 600,000 men plus women and children. So it's thought to be about 2 million from 70. I'd say God bless that. The land was filled with them. Now a new king arose over Egypt who didn't know Joseph. And he said to his people, behold, the people of the sons of Israel are more and mightier than we. So they appointed taskmasters over them to afflict them with hard labor. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied. So they were in dread of the sons of Israel. Now, maybe the most important principle in the Christian life, and it's also in nature, is the principle of life coming through death. We like the life, just don't want to do the death part. but it's a package. And the best illustration of it is the seed that Jesus held up and said, unless this grain of wheat falls to the earth and dies, it remains by itself alone, protected. Think about it. You're the life. There is power in this seed. There is life in this seed. But if it's not willing to lose its life, it'll remain in this little seed. But I mean, if I'm the little seed, I like being in this little comfy shell. It's hard. I'm safe. I'm protected. And you can live behind that protective wall for life. And it really isn't life. So somebody convinces this little seed, hey, you want to experience the power of life? Okay, give yourself to the farmer. Well, what will he do? Well, he's going to take you, little seed, and shove you into the ground where it's cold and dark. Well, I don't know about that. Hold it. It gets worse. And then your little protective shell, that which has protected you, your whole little life, is going to crack and break, and it will feel like your life is literally falling apart. And you'll say, guys, that's bad. No, that's good, because then the power of life is released out of this, and a miracle happens. And did you know that a tree 60 foot tall can come out of this little seed? This power of life. But where does it start? Through death. It's a paradox. It's not only written in the Christian life, but even the power of God through weakness and pain. There's a lot of muscle guys in here that could tell you, you actually build muscle by tearing it down. You tear it down, it builds back stronger. Power, strength through weakness. So Satan, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. The thorn, Paul, that came to you from Satan, that he said, take it away, I don't want it. And God said, no, I'm going to leave that because my power is made perfect through that weakness. That thorn is doing something that you don't see, but you need to see. It's actually guarding you from pride and other harmful things. Or Job was a good man, but then Satan was allowed to afflict him for 40 chapters. And we think, that's horrible. At the end of that, Job said, God, I knew about you through the hearing of the ear, but now my eyes see you. So God uses Satan to undo the work of demons. Got to know that. So God's ways and who he values versus the ways of the world. Okay, one of our verses was Isaiah 55. For my ways, my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor my ways your ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my thoughts higher than your thoughts, and my ways higher than your ways. That what was that spaceship that's gone around the moon? I mean, it's like, how high is the heavens above the earth? I mean, the moon is just a speck to eternity. Big gulf, big difference. So God thinks differently, and we've got to try to get that perspective. Like, okay, here's a giant there that we want to slay. Go get a little boy with a sling. We got 5,000 men plus the women and children to feed. What about that little boy with a lunch? 5 loaves and 2 fish. Or we're up against a wall, the strongest city in the land called Jericho. How are we going to destroy this wall? We don't got any bombs. March around it for 6 days and then yell and blow a trumpet. This is God's ways showing his strength through our weakness. Listen to this. Let's make the point with this story. Verse 15 of Exodus 1. Then the king of Egypt, okay, he's the most powerful man in the world, but we don't even know his name. Contrast that. Then the king of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew midwives. These are the outcast of the outcast. One of who was named Shiphrah, and the other was named Puah. 3,500 years later, we're talking about Shiphrah and Puah that was totally neglected in society. And we don't even know the name of the king of the world, of their world. And he said, when you are helping the Hebrew women to give birth and see them upon the birth stool, if it's a son, then you'll put him to death, but if it's a daughter, she shall live. But the midwives feared God and did not do as the king of Egypt had commanded, because they're serving another king, but let the boys live. This is the first time, by the way, that somebody doesn't follow the government directive. And I don't propose rebellion unless we must obey God rather than men. And this is the first time that happened. So God was good to the midwives, and the people multiplied, and they became very mighty. Because the midwives, Shiphrah and Puah, feared God. And we said last week, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. You don't end there. It's the beginning. But it's the fear of the holy awesomeness of God that says, I bow my knee. And then his love can mean all the more. It's kind of cheap if he's a kitty cat. But if he's the lion that also loves you, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And they feared God. Because of that, he established households for them. Then Pharaoh commanded all the people, saying, every son who is born you are to cast into the Nile, and every daughter you are to keep alive. Just a reminder as we go through this story and as you go through life, to remind ourselves, who's in charge here? Who's in charge here? The heart of a king is like channels of water in the hand of the Lord. He turns it wherever he wishes. He's God. Let me read to you. We don't even know the name of the king, but God records the names of these two ladies. I just think that's beautiful. Eugene Peterson, an author I love, he writes, Egypt and Pharaoh were the world powers and very impressive in their accomplishments. But the biblical writers ignore all that. They have little interest in the spectacular achievements of men and women. They are not interested in arrogant displays of ego. They are interested in God and know better than to look for signs of his presence and activity in the big, the multitudinous, the in-your-face assertive. So it is significant that the first names that appear in this grounding account in the book of Exodus of God at work in history are Shiphrah and Puah, two midwives from the lowest social and economic strata of that society. The two women defy the order of the Egyptian king, and by that act of defiance set in motion the chain of historical events that eventually, set alongside the story of Jesus, will become the account of salvation for all of history. The king of Egypt, also referred to as Pharaoh, perhaps the most powerful world ruler at the time, is not even dignified with a personal name. By these two obscure Hebrew women are named, and by virtue of being named are not obscure, these two women, Shiphrah and Puah. They are midwives. Their job is to bring babies into the world. When the world powerful king orders them to kill these same babies, they simply and without fanfare defy him. We won't forget this. And then he ends. World leaders are minor players in the biblical way of writing and participating in history. People like Shiphrah and Puah play decisive roles. You got to recognize who has real power, what true power is. We've got to know the difference in how the world sees and values and how God does. Right? We've said before, they're going to choose a new king. Samuel comes and it's Eliab, tall, dark, and handsome. And God says, don't look at his appearance or at the height of his stature, for I've rejected him. For God sees not as a man sees. Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. This is, James 1:27, this is true and undefiled religion in the sight of our God and Father. It's the only sight that matters. To visit widows and orphans in their distress, and to keep yourself unstained from the world. Hey, Grace Fellowship, we as a church want to value what God values. And He values showing up in lives that society and maybe the church has forgotten, but not God. And the difference in the way the world sees power and how God does. The word of the cross, 1 Corinthians 1:18, is foolishness to those who are perishing. But to us who are being saved by God, it is the power of God. For I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes. And I've heard it preached before. That's dunamos, power, the Greek word. Dynamite. Except the only problem with that is dynamite wasn't invented for 1,000 years. So the power of the gospel is not like dynamite. Glitzy, glamorous, whoa, catches your eye. It's more like that seed, the power that is released through a seed. And a tree grows and grows slowly, imperceptibly, but real and solid, and can break concrete and stand through the strongest of hurricanes. That's the power of the gospel. Has seasons to it. Not, we're looking for the signs and wonders. Jesus said, an evil and adulterous generation craves those. So we find faith in the strangest ways and places. So this story, we've gone back to Hebrews, or gone forward to Hebrews 11. That's New Testament, the Hall of Faith. It's about all these Old Testament people and how they demonstrated their faith. So let's read a couple of verses that are about this account. By faith, Joseph, Hebrews 11:22, when he was dying, he made mention of the exodus of the sons of Israel, and he gave orders concerning his bones. So Joseph, who knew, because God had told Abraham, you're going to be in Egypt for 400 years, and then you're coming back to this land called Canaan. Joseph knew that, and he said, hey, I won't be around then, but take my bones. They did. They knew. He knew God would be faithful. It was 350 years later after he died, but they carried his bones. They carried it around for 40 years in the wilderness. I thought that was pretty amazing, carrying his bones around. But they did in Joshua 24. They buried his bones in the land. Verse 23, by faith Moses, when he was born, was hidden for 3 months by his parents because they saw that he was beautiful, and they were not afraid of the king's edict. So who does God notice? Midwives and enslaved parents. Nothing wrong with being powerful or having money or any of that. It's just not what God values ultimately. I think we would call, matter of fact, one of you girls had the shirt on, faith over fear. They were not afraid because of their faith. Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not anxiously look about you, for I am your God. I mean, what if we just believe that? I'm with you. I'm your God. I will strengthen you. I'll help you. Surely I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Cast all your cares on me. Cast all your anxieties on me because I care for you. And in a few verses, it's going to say, Moses left Egypt not fearing the wrath of the king, for he endured as seeing him who is unseen. If God dropped down right here and you could see him right here, it probably changed the way you lived your life. Well, faith ultimately in its truest sense does that. It becomes so real. How could you not continue on? How could you not go follow in this direction? So this is a big point. We're going to go back to the story in Exodus, and we're going to talk about what I just read about in Hebrews 11. Now a man from the house of Levi, this is Moses' father, Exodus 2:1, went and married a daughter of Levi, Moses' mother, and the woman conceived and bore a son, Moses, and when she saw that he was beautiful, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could hide him no longer, so she's got faith, but now she's going to have to put her faith into action. That's going to be this point. When she could hide him no longer, she, 1, got a wicker basket, 2, covered it over with tar and pitch, 3, then she put the child into it, and 4, she set it among the reeds by the bank of the Nile. So faith has action to it. Our part, we have a part of guided action. We're not just go. It's just like, okay, Lord, where are you leading? It's on me to step out in that, to plan, at times to risk, at times to abandon, at times to act on the faith that I have. That's the way you exercise it. Faith isn't passive. It's faith working through love. So think about our building. Okay, so we had a need. We were outgrowing this building. So what do? Well, good place to start. You trust, you pray, you seek, you have faith. But then we didn't just huddle in here. Let's all take a nap and God, you'll have some realtor knock on our door and give us a building. He could do that, just not what he often does. So what did we do? We looked for some buildings. A couple of us called some realtors. We have a church meeting. We form a team. We actually tried to buy this building. Got blocked. We were disappointed. But then I'm so thankful every time I walk in that back lot and see all those cars, that some car lot is in that building. Like, God takes up all our parking places. Thank you, Lord, for stopping us from not even knowing what we needed. We needed to talk some about money, so we'd talk about money. I'm at a restaurant with a good friend of mine who's on staff at First Baptist, and he knows what we're doing here. And he said, Judge Howerton, who leads Carson Meyer Foundation, is in our church. How about I get a lunch and the three of us, and I know Judge, great guy. We do a lunch, share with him. He asked about this. Carson Meyer gives us $100,000, thank God. People show up to work regularly. We form another team after the first one. Some people like Darren, Greg, Neil, doing a lot of work. So we got to know this principle. There's a God part and a man's part. We've got to know, and to me, a key to the Christian life is being able to discern those. God can only do what God can only do. You have a part. It's not God's part. I said, was it you, Cody? This morning, growing a garden. So I plant seed. I have no idea. We used to grow a garden. It grows. It's a miracle. Right? Couldn't get the kids out there in the summer when I was weeding, except when it was time to pick. But we picked. Like, how does that happen? It's a miracle. I didn't do anything to make that happen. I did put some water on it occasionally. I weeded it. Made sure it was not under trees, but in the sun. But that didn't make that grow, but it made conditions favorable for growth to occur. Got to know the difference. So, third point in this story, God sees and hears and knows. He knows where you are. 6 times that's going to be stated. Look at Exodus 3:7. The Lord said, I have surely seen, he's talking about the nation of Israel in bondage in Egypt. I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, and have given heed to their cry because of their taskmasters. For I am aware of their sufferings. So I have come down to deliver them from the power of the Egyptians, and to bring them up from the land to a good and spacious land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of these are all inhabitants of the land, the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Amorite, Perizzite, Hivite, Jebusite. Now behold, the cry of the sons of Israel has come to me. 3 times God says, they're suffering, and I'm aware of it. My people are afflicted. They are suffering. They are crying. But then 6 times he says, furthermore, I have seen the oppression with which the Egyptians are oppressing them. So life is hard, and God is good. He sees you. He knows you, even when circumstances speak differently. He's fathering you. I say it again. I say it a lot, but it came up with the girls this week as I was talking to them. The grace, if you're in recovery, if you are in a recovery center right now, the grace of God on your behalf is massive. He stopped you from going off a cliff, threw you in jail, got caught, somebody told on you. That is not bad luck. You do not need to get back to the life you had. You need a different life. He stopped you. And then the second grace is you're in this incubator. And I heard you girls, all your stories, like what has God done in you since you've been in this incubator or center point? I hear these stories all the time, and I want to say, this is God's grace to you. Not bad luck. It's to change your life, change the way you're thinking. You got to see the gift that it is to you. And we've all got our stories of that. So he created you. You're not alone. Everything that touches your life, remember in college I thought about this. It comes across God's desk. He looks at it, stamps it, approves, and sends it on to my life. Nothing touches my life unless it's been stamped approved by God. He's sovereign. So he takes them out of Egypt. Yay! He takes them to the land of Canaan eventually. Yay! It's flowing with milk and honey. And when we get there, there are 7 nations, all of them greater and stronger than us, already there. God, will you never stop this? Will you never stop putting me in places where I'm over my head? When do I get to coast? It doesn't exist. Throw that out the window, because he's creating something in you, and coasting isn't it. Look at verse 1, chapter 7 of Deuteronomy. When the Lord your God brings you into the land where you are entering to possess it, Canaan, and clears away many nations before you, and then he lists them. I don't have that in there. 7 nations greater and stronger than you. Why, God? Why would you lead me to a place where there's 7 nations? We don't even have an army. They're greater and stronger than you. He designed that to create space for him. If your life is so manageable that you've got it, you don't need him. But if you are so over your head in life that you can't handle it, amen, you're in a great spot. You got space for him. He's created that. And your pace, he speaks to that next. Verse 22. The Lord your God will clear away these nations. And you think about not nations, but your issues, the sins that you battle with, the things that you battle with, the circumstances that you battle with. The Lord your God will clear away these nations before you little by little. I mean, why, God? These are enemies. They hate you. Why would you not just, here we are at the doorway of the land, boom, get rid of them? Because something more dangerous would happen than the enemies themselves. He will clear them away before you little by little. You will not be able to put an end to them quickly. There's a pace to his deliverance with them and with you and me. Why would you not get rid of them quickly? Take them out, God. They're bad. They're sinful. They're evil. They hurt me. Because if I did it quickly, the wild beasts would grow too numerous for you. These enemies, these nations are actually keeping at bay a worse situation, wild animals. You don't know how they're serving you. You don't know how that issue, that struggle, that thing that you throw away, that person, that relationship that you just want to get rid of, it's serving you. Something worse would come into its place if that wasn't there, like pride, like independence. You don't want to see yourself without the challenges that are in your life. A worse situation. Thomas Carlyle said, for one man who can handle prosperity, there are 100 that can handle adversity. Victor Hugo, adversity makes men, prosperity makes monsters. Abraham Lincoln, Almost any man can handle adversity. But if you want to test a man's character, give him power. So life is hard, and God is good, and He is sovereign, supreme ruler. And there is no other stream. There's nowhere else to go. Most of us are old enough to know. They don't know it yet in that back room. That's what we're trying to teach them. But you and I know. There's life nowhere else out there. Stories teach us that. This story teaches that. Whatever was written in earlier times, we're reading about it. It's what we're doing in the Old Testament. Was written for our instruction, is written to teach us that through perseverance, it'll help us persevere. Okay, come on now. Stay with me. Come on. Don't give up. Don't give up. And the encouragement of the Scripture, we might have hope. That's what we're doing here. All the best stories that you and I know are based on the eternal story. You like them because they are shadows of the eternal story. John Eldridge is helpful for this. Think about all the stories you know and love. Once upon a time, all was well. Then evil entered into the world. Some betrayer, some betrayal. And then there were oppositions at war. Somebody has a call. Somebody has a role to play. Somebody's got to step up and be called to help fight against the evil or undo the bad. And then ultimately, restoration. And they lived happily ever after. That's our story in Jesus. Stories teach us. Our stories must be interpreted through the right lens. That's where I want to end. You've got to have perspective to interpret your story well. Otherwise, the circumstances will be misinterpreted and you and I can miss what God is about. So let me give you, as we close here, a lens. I get it from John Eldridge. 3 eternal truths that all the great stories have, including our story. 1, things are not what they seem. We live in 2 worlds at one time, a world that you can see and a world that you can't see. But we don't know that. Don't ever make the mistake of doubting or not believing something just because you can't see it. Electricity. 2nd, a great battle is underway. We are in a world at war. We are in a world at war. We're not on a playground. It's a battlefield. Got to know that. 3rd, someone has an important role to play. Moses, we're going to see next week, he cannot believe the role that God's going to call him to play. He's incompetent. He's inadequate. You don't know what I don't have. And God said, that's why I'm calling you. Because you know that you don't have what it takes. Here's my question to you. Do you know your story? Do you know what God is about in your story right now? Are you able to interpret correctly? Or are you misinterpreting what God is doing in your story? Or are the expectations of people and the culture shaping your interpretations? Your expectations is what you see on TV, on the reality shows. It's supposed to, well, not those shows, but let's say advertisement. Good. That's what my life's supposed to be. That's your interpretation. You're using the wrong lens to look through. Read biographies, read people from yesteryear. A lot of people can help you reframe your perspective. Life is hard, and God is good, and He is sovereignly weaving His tapestry in your life that have dark threads and light threads. Let me close with this. If I can find it. I texted our family group text today and said, I'm going to show the snowman today. So one or both of my kids my girls made this years and years ago. And it's a little snowman, right? It's got Let It Snow, and on the back is... So this got great, deep message here. So this is a tapestry of a picture that God is doing that has a backside. And we live our life like this, right? We're under here. God is up here. And life looks like this. It's just chaotic. It's got, yeah, there's a pretty thread in there, but there's a lot of dark ones in there. But you've got to know there is a tapestry being woven in your life. But if you don't see it, you could live your whole life and interpret this and miss that. So let me ask you what I ask the girls, and we ask a lot of people. What's your Jesus story? What is your Jesus story? And by that, I don't just mean your salvation, but your life. Where are you in this story that we've been talking about? So once you bow your head, Father, these are stories, but stories speak to us. We identify with it. We stream stories all the time. But these stories are designed to teach us. Just like one of the girls told me that The Chosen was a big part of the way you spoke to her. So where are you with Jesus? Do you know him? Is he your Savior and Lord? Or no, he's not. Or I thought he was because I went to church. I got baptized. But no, he is not my King and my Lord. And for those of us who do know you as our Savior and Lord Jesus, how are we interpreting the circumstances of our life? We've got to see through the proper lens, and social media won't do it. We have 6.5 hours a day of social media and a 5-minute devotional on my way out the door. I am not going to see correctly. We've got to have times like this, sermons like this, conversations, intentional, to help us see and interpret the threads of our life correctly.